Good morning. I don't normally do streams at this time in the morning. I'm normally more of an evening kind of guy. But thanks very much for tuning in. There are some people that have tuned in, so that's great. To the Outcast Creative channel, I've got another industry interview. We've been trying to lock this one down. So it is a little bit last minute because the cast and creator of this fantastic film are currently doing screenings of it in Australia almost every night, and Q&As afterwards and all that kind of thing. So they've got very hectic schedule, not to mention the fact that they're also on Australian time. Now, if people haven't seen it already, I'm going to drop the trailer for the cast into the chat right now. So you can check it out. I'm going to play it. Sometimes I have an issue sharing audio. So if you're tuning in, there goes the link right now. But I'm gonna share it, and we'll have a quick look at the trailer for the cast, and then I'm gonna bring in some of the people from the production. So just give me a second here, and this is when I need my assistant. Okay, here we go. All right, so this is the two-tone trailer for the cast. Damn, man. I don't say this about many trailers, but God, that one gets better every time I watch it. And for those people watching, I have seen the whole movie. And yeah, if you didn't have sound, the link is there in the chat. You can check it out yourself. Now, I'm really lucky today because not only is the writer, co-writer and director a good friend of mine, Matthew Holmes, my brother from Down Under, but I've also got all three of the lead cast joining me as well. Fantastic. So here they are. Without further ado, Matthew Holmes.
Good morning, evening.
Yeah, indeed, indeed. I'm not quite sure what time it is. I've got Kevin D.
Hi, everyone.
Damon and Jordan also with us. Thanks very much,
everyone.
Hey, boys.
Guys, thanks so much for agreeing to come on the show. I really do appreciate it. This is industry interview 40 or 41 for me in the last 12 months. So and I think this is going to be one of the best yet. So I've got to ask this question because it's just on my mind while I was watching the trailer. Who got to dig that hole?
Well, I dug the hole, but in the process of filming it, I think Damon added another foot or two to it. So But I dug the initial hole on the first weekend we got out there, and I did it all on my own. And let me tell you, when you're standing in the woods, when there's no one else around digging a pit, it gets weird. So, yeah, it gets very weird.
Well, I mean, I remember when you first sent me the link for that trailer, and I was like, Jesus, this is a good trailer. I sent it to my friend, the Critical Drinker, and he said, this looks like a $20 million movie. That was the very first thing that he said. And better than most of the Hollywood trailers I've seen of late. So this started. I remember that we were both writing a lot of scripts in lockdown, and this you were saying I've got to write something with like 3 people in a room, or I remember you talking to me about that. So just Matt, tell us a bit about how it started, and then we'll get on to how these lovely gentlemen got cast in the movie.
Well, yeah, like you said, I was looking for something that was manageable and relatively low budget, and I'd had the idea for exploring the idea of revenge for a while. I knew I had this location and this property that I could film it on, so it was really about. And I also knew that I had 2 out of 3 of the actors that I wanted, and because I wrote it with Jordan and with Damon in mind. But so it really was a matter of just sort of writing with what I had at my disposal, and then of course sending it out to these actors and seeing what they thought of it, and then of course in the case of Kevin, I had to hunt him down over the next few months. So yeah.
I mean, I know, Jordan, I know you worked on The Legend of Ben Hur with Matt, and I was one of the backers of the crowdfunding campaign of that, which is how Matt and I actually met, in case you didn't know. And then, Damon, you'd worked with Matt before?
No, the first time I met Matt was actually at the premiere of Ben Hur, and I don't even remember how it was that I ended up at the premiere of Ben Hur, but I met that night, and sort of here we are.
So you came on his radar essentially, and just said, "Hey, if you've got something else coming up."
No, not quite. There's actually a bit of a story to how Matt and I became mates and ended up working together. So essentially, I was just at a restaurant across the road from where Ben Hur was premiering, and Matt just happened to be at the booth seated next to me with a bunch of people, and I didn't know who Matt was, and I was just eavesdropping on the conversation because I was there by myself, and picked up on the fact that he was the director, and thought, that's interesting. Anyway, later on after the film, I just happened to be standing in the vicinity of where he was again, and know that I hadn't tried to. I just happenstance, and I heard him say that he was going to be heading up to New South Wales, driving up to location scout for his next film. And he was looking for someone to go with him. And I thought, I got nothing on over the next few days. I'll go for a road trip. So I went over and said, "Hey, Matt, I understand you're looking for someone to go to New South Wales with you on a road trip." And he's gone, "Yeah." And I said, "No, mate, I'll come along." So that was that. So we spent the next 3 days driving around New South Wales in Matt's car and just talking film and all things production, and just ended up becoming really good mates. And then yeah.
Is that a normal Australian custom that like strange men come up to you in restaurants and say, "Hey, mate, you don't know me, but I'll give you a lift and drive you around a remote location"? I think if I was in Australia and someone said to me, I'd probably be hesitating a little bit.
You'd be watching too many Wolf Creek movies.
That's right.
I've been watching the cast. Okay, so that's interesting. And I know, Damon, you've done a few bits and pieces of Australian television prior to this movie, but you've got another job. What's that?
I'm also a barrister, so I do a lot of defence work. So defending individuals who might be charged with what Aaron and David might or might not be charged with, depending on whether people have seen this or not. So I both prosecute and defend, mainly do defence work. And I also have a prosecutions background. So I used to be a prosecutor for 12 years and then recently went to the bar and became a barrister. So this film was this role was interesting for me, coming from both of those worlds, if you like, to play Aaron.
Yeah, I mean, I've got to ask, how would that must have been really useful for this role in particular because of the moral dichotomy that the characters are facing. You must have been able to bring in elements to your character of people you'd met through your work, or there must have been something to tap into there, I would have thought, for your performance.
Look, the honest answer is no. Everything that I brought to Aaron came from me, and the easiest way to explain that, I was asked this the other night after a screening and a Q&A by an audience member, and I'll give the same answer I gave the audience member. All of us have, we all have multifaceted personalities, of course, and for me, in any role I play, all I do is bring to the fore that facet of my personality which aligns with that character, and suppress those other aspects of my personality that don't align, and that allows me to just be. So as much as Aaron is not Damon, he's very much comes from who I am. So no, I didn't bring anything from anyone else I'd met through my work or outside of my work. Everything that is Aaron comes from a facet, one facet of who I am and what makes me.
Jordan, turning to you, and of course we know each other a little bit, and I always remember, it was Matt will confirm, my first conversation about you was, Matt, who's that guy in your film? I want to cast him in something. So that's always a nice introduction, isn't it? What was your process towards this role? Because you're playing a bereaved husband. It's a really raw, emotional part, and you put quite a lot into it. What did you do to prepare for the role?
Yeah, gosh, a lot. It is a big role, and I think what Damon was just saying around what we bring of ourselves, and I believe that is critical to any quality acting, is we must bring aspects of ourselves. So yeah, I mean, some of those scenes I literally spent weeks prepping for. I think I had to really tap into what David, the character, was kind of experiencing around feeling really hurt and feeling really violated by what has happened prior to the film starting. And yeah, I spent a lot of time working. I use a lot of kind of inner imagery and trying to really connect with, I guess, the underlying feelings, and see if I can find them in my own life, my own experiences, and put that into the work. Yeah, it was often, it wasn't always easy. For those of you, who've seen the film, there's some pretty heavy stuff in there, and it required a lot. But that was always something. I remember some of the very early conversations I had with Matthew when he first came to me with this script. I never wanted it to be easy. I wanted to be, this is about two ordinary men, and that was critical to what we wanted this story to show, and to show in the work. And that was so important to me, for it not to be easy, and to step into it. And the beauty of film, and the beauty of being out on set, out on location in the forest with your fellow actor tied up, and is that you can step into that, and it provides so much as an actor. But I never wanted it to be easy, because it wouldn't be, and we see it sort of, this stuff glorified within Hollywood films so much, but that's not what the story was about at all. So yeah, we tried to really step into the guttural rawness and the confrontation and the hurt and the pain that's would be so present in these characters.
So Kevin, you had the easy job on the movie, to be prodded and poked and covered in blood and thrown about and kicked about. I mean, yeah, just so I guess you were new to Matt's gang in a way. How did it come about that you got cast? What did you have to do to audition and prepare for the audition for the role, first of all?
I think Matt and I have a lot of mutual friends, and I think Matt had come across my show reel or my headshot or somewhere along the lines, and sort of sussed out through friends who I was, and found out, you know, whether I was available, sent me the script. I did do a screen test for the role, but as soon as I read the script, I knew it was a role I really couldn't pass up. I mean, he had warned me before I'd even read it that it was going to be an intense role, and he was upfront that he'd already, you know, sent the role to a couple of actors who just felt that it was going to be far too much to put themselves through. It was pretty challenging, but I knew I would regret it if I didn't take on the role. So yeah, thankfully he loved my screen test and gave me the role, and away we went, kind of thing. So,
you know, it's fun. It's funny. I found an email like 2 days ago. I think I was looking for an email of yours, Kev, about something else, and I actually found an email prior to the cost that you had sent me when I was working on Glen Rowan.
Yeah, years ago.
And I'm like, you were an actor. You were not known to me at that point. And then here's this email from a Kevin D going, "Hey, I'm a local Castlemaine actor," and I didn't actually make the connection when I found you on that website. I didn't realize you were the same guy that had contacted me years before. So it's interesting. So
I've had that happen quite a few times.
Yeah. So, but I did reply quite politely to you at the time, so at least I didn't burn any bridges.
That's right.
But anyway, you were going to ask something, Lance.
Yeah, I mean, as actors, you know, one of the things I remember when I first read the scripts and before you guys were cast, is the first thing I said to Matt was, this film is definitely going to stand or fall on the performance of the three leads alone. And I have to say that your three performances are absolutely phenomenal. And everybody that's seen the film through my connection with Matt, that's the first thing they always say to me. How did you, at the end of it, like the working day, because these are intense days, also in difficult physical circumstances, and set against the background of you know, the lockdown, like you didn't have enough pressure with the script itself and the characters you're doing. How did you make the sort of physical disconnect at the end of the day? Were the three of you able to kind of go to the, you know, down the pub and have a beer as kind of work colleagues? Or did Damon and Jordan, did you have to kind of distance yourself from Kevin until the end of the shoot? Maybe sort of turning to Kevin first. How did that work?
You had some pretty intense scenes there, Kev.
No.
Yeah, there was some very intense scenes. Matt had sort of been upfront with me that we did have a reading before we shot the film, and Matt had said that both Jordan and Damon had sort of expressed that they would like to, you know, keep their distance from me and not get to know me too much prior to shooting, just so that, you know, to stay in the role kind of thing, which I totally understood. So we didn't really hang out much down the pub at all through the shoot. And also, I mean, we were shooting on weekends initially, so we all were, those of us that could work through COVID were, you know, back to our day jobs through the week. So we only really saw each other while we were shooting. We were very much involved.
Yeah,
we didn't really get a lot of chance to hang out, I suppose. The days were so long and they were always starting so early. I know that Damon and Jordan, we hung out a little bit because we shared the same accommodation when we went up to location. So we had some time together, but Kevin lived quite close to the location, so he would just go home. So we didn't really have a lot of social time. And at the end of a shooting day out there, I mean, you're wrecked. Last thing you want to do is go and hang out and have a drink. You want to go home, have a shower, and go to bed. So
I certainly couldn't go to the pub. I was covered in mud and blood and all sorts of things.
Yeah,
I've got an image in my head of Kevin living in a tent just off set now. Probably not.
He probably had to go to the local clinic and get a few cuts, bruises, and stuff attended to before he went home. So
I mean, Damon, how would you, at the end of a day like this, could you just switch off and then go about your day job on a Monday? Was it that easy?
Yeah, it was. At the end of the film is the film, and this, and the character is the character. And whilst I was on set, I remained, if not entirely in character, I remained distant from everyone. I really only switched back to being myself when we either got back to the accommodation that I was staying at with Matt and Jordan, or got in my car and went home. The entire time that I was on set, I was on, so to speak. I was very much remaining within the, if you like, the sphere of who Aaron was, because that just made it easier to not have to transition from Damon to Aaron, because my feeling for me, and of course this is different for every actor, for me, you could lose vital moments, and every moment is everything on film. You can't afford to not be 100% in that character from prior to the moment that the director says action. And so I just basically stayed almost in character right through, but it was never difficult to switch off as soon as we were done for the day, except, as was already said, remaining distant from Kevin. That was important for me. I never wanted to develop any kind of bond or relationship with him throughout the film, because again, that would have just made it more difficult for me to do what I needed to do as Aaron. I wanted to keep that distance.
Yeah, no, I understand, and I mean, you can see that process was incredibly effective on screen. Jordan, what was the most difficult day of filming for you?
I can't remember.
On the whole,
there were a lot.
I'm sure there are a lot to choose from.
It's interesting, Lance.
One.
Hearing the others talk about. I was wrecked. I mean, so often. At the end of the day, there's the physical element, being out in the bush. Often it'd be really hot or really cold or raining, and be exhausted, might be running all day, so you're physically exhausted. And a lot of those scenes really emotionally exhausted. I found I needed to kind of have some sort of ritual at the end of the day to kind of let it go a little bit. It might just be something simple like a single malt whiskey, or it might be like a hot shower or something. But I did find something to just kind of have a little process, or even a signaling for myself to just let it go and be wherever else I needed to be. I think in terms of the most demanding scenes, I have a couple of one particular big breakdown scene. And I think that was that's probably the most sort of complex, and was a scene that I really wanted to get right. But it's sort of when you have something really big and emotional, you can really run yourself into trouble trying to get it right. You got to let it kind of be messy. Yeah. And then of course when you're shooting on film, the blessed director wants you to do it 10 times or more, different angles, and so that this team though, we might talk about this more, but there was it was a really special team, and Matthew led from the front, but I felt really safe and supported and respected. And it's not like that on every set. And it's interesting, this is such a tough kind of film in a lot of ways, but as an actor to go into that deep, raw, emotional stuff, for me, I need to feel like I've got people who've got my back, and that I can be sort of protected a little bit, so that I can feel safe to go into, because it is vulnerable, it is tough, it is exposing, and working with particularly with Matthew and Damon on those particular breakdown scenes, and the rest of the crew, everyone was incredibly respectful and held space. So it allowed and kind of respected and it sort of acknowledged the challenge in doing that really deep work.
That scene where you broke down, Jordan, is that the one after the first sort of whipping scene? That's when you run out into the bush to get a moment's relief. Is that the one you mean? That was actually our first weekend in the bush, and the first scene we did in the bush.
Right.
So he was actually thrown. Talk about being thrown into the deep end. We hadn't even filmed the torture yet. You didn't even know what you were reacting to, except for what was on the page. And that was the first thing he was thrown into. And interestingly enough, I don't know, you probably might remember this, Jordan, but I remember when you did that scene and you broke down in rehearsal or the first take to the level that you did. I remember going, okay, that's interesting. That is far exceeds the level of emotion that I initially thought your character would be at in that scene.
Mm-hmm.
But I thought, okay, it's really good. It's, maybe that's exactly where he should be. So I sort of let you go there. Whereas in my mind, he was only at like 1 or 2% of that emotional state. But that's one of those things, like because it was such a collaborative effort with the actors, I just sort of let them go with it and with really what they felt, where they felt they needed to be. And now that I watch the movie, it would have been completely wrong if he had gone down to the 1 or 2% where I thought he should be. So again, that it was a good lesson for me as a director to sometimes when your actor's got an instinct on something, let him go with the instinct and see where that takes you. It may not always be right, but sometimes it may be bang on. So
yeah, I know the film was a very collaborative process with everybody kind of shaping their characters and tweaking dialogue to a degree where it felt required. Is that correct?
Yeah, very much so.
Am I right in thinking all three of your leading cast here, have you all done at least one play on stage? Would that be right?
Yeah.
Yeah, because one of the things I feel when I watched the cast was, God, this would make a good stage play. Because it is, it's three people on stage with a very, very intense script and a number of twists. Sorry, I probably planted a terrible idea in Matt's head now. But you never know. So, Matt, how many? So this was all done in and around lockdown with not a lot of money. I know there'll be filmmaker people watching. Can you sort of talk about? I know you had a little bit of finance. Could you just briefly talk about how that kind of fell into place? What was the process?
Getting the film up and financed. Look, we had the idea. Me and Greg had written it, and we thought at the beginning we were like, "Oh yeah, we could make this for $10,000."
Yeah, I remember that conversation.
Yeah, and we're like, "Oh yeah," and Greg's brother really liked the script and really wanted to support it, and was in a financial position to be able to do that. So he jumped in and said, here's some money. And then we sort of budgeted out. We thought we need a bit more. And so I started reaching out to a few people that had invested in Ben Hall and other things like that. And before you know it, we managed to pull together a fair bit of money. And now we were off and running. So that's really how it happened. And then it wasn't until March later, when we'd filmed the great majority of the film, we got access to even more money now that we had some material to show. So that's sort of how it came about, really. But from the very beginning, with all the actors, it was just telling people, this is, it's all going to be volunteer. It's all going to be on weekends and that sort of thing. And we started filming, I think, correct me if I'm wrong, fellas, but I think we'd had a certain amount of lockdown. Like we'd had a bit of a short lockdown and like a couple of weeks or something. We thought, okay, it's all safe now. And we started, and then the big lockdown hit us about 3 weeks later. And then it was periodical, every few months we would get back together and shoot. I think that's how it happened.
Your continuity on this must have been an absolute nightmare.
It was a bit, yeah. Hair was growing. I know, Jordan, you were constantly taking trips to the hairdresser to maintain that. I got a nice big hairdresser bill from you. I remember that. So I was going to ask,
because I know your crew was, in terms of size, your crew was pretty tight. How many people?
About 12 people maybe, and a few camera operators on a bit of a rotating roster. And sometimes some of the crew would change, sound recorders, ADs, things like that would change over time as other commitments took other people away. But
so was your continuity department for this effectively cast has a notebook and we check pictures?
Continuity department was me and the makeup artist.
Right.
That was it. And we just did the best we could. And of course, also relying on cast to know, no, I always wear this in this scene and I always wear that in that scene. So it was a bit of a group effort like that. We were all wearing a lot of hats. I mean, we had no wardrobe person on set, did we? No, cast had their own wardrobe. They bought their own wardrobe to set, and kind of maintained and looked after their own wardrobe. So yeah, it was very low budget.
Did you, Jordan and Damon? Did you wash your body warmer and jacket between these different days, or did you just keep them exactly as they were?
I kept mine exactly as they were.
Yeah, I washed the undergarments.
Wow,
I could have. Yeah, I wish that Damon had washed his as well.
that body warmer must have been pretty sweaty by the. That must have been pretty right by the end of that shoot.
It went straight in the bin.
Straight in the bin.
So you've done. I think
Kevin didn't wear any clothes in the film, so he didn't need to wash anything.
Mine was easy.
So he could go home and wash himself.
I want to ask each of the cast this question, and it's always interesting to hear. Where you've had a few of the screenings now. I know Jordan's missed a couple thanks to COVID-19, and that lovely present from Holland that you came back with. But you know, I did a bit of acting back in the day, and I absolutely hate watching myself when I've done performances. But I am always interested in watching the cast respond to things on screen, whether I've directed or. So if I sit in a film premiere of mine, I'm always watching the audience. I'm never watching the film. I just wonder with the cast, when you've had these screenings, do you sit in and do you focus more on what the audience are doing and how they're reacting, or are you studying your own performance and being hyper self-critical and thinking, oh shit, I wish I'd done this that way, or do you prefer not just to go and sit at the bar and then come out for the Q&A? Damon, for you first.
Well, the first screening I did go to, and I watched as critiquing the film and critiquing my performance in the film. The next screening I went to, which wasn't for quite some months later, I watched as an audience member, and it was interesting because I was able to appreciate just how good the film was by the simple fact that I forgot that I was actually watching me play Aaron. I was completely engrossed in the film. And to me, that was, if you like, an indication of what we'd all achieved, Matt and the cast and crew, to make a film that I could sit back and watch as someone who's actually in the film and not notice that I'm in the film. But every screening in between, I've just gone to the Q&As because I don't really feel the need to see the film more than once or twice. So yeah, that's probably about the best answer I can give to that question.
Lance, you've gone quiet, mate.
Sorry, mate, I was muted. I was going to say it's a good answer, and it's not a film you're going to want to sit through countless times, whether you're an audience member or not. It's more of a kind of watch it and go away and process it. Jordan, for you?
Yeah, I don't know if I'll ever forget the first watch, the cast and crew screening. I was pretty anxious, to be honest. Definitely had a couple of beers to kind of just help relax. I find it's never super easy watching your work, and I think it's pretty critical. But overall, it was such a positive experience, and it's such a collaborative project, and it's it's a collaborative cast, and so I think I try really hard to kind of take my ego out of it, and
that would have been some effort, but anyway.
Thanks, Damon. What profound thing was I saying? Yeah, no, it was such a collaborative effort, and again, when we finished, I was so proud of what we had achieved, and there are so many moving parts that have gone through to make this happen, and yeah, so I've watched it maybe 2 other times, I reckon, at screenings. Usually because I've had someone there, or friends, or acting mentors or something that I've invited along. And again, it's relatively nerve wracking, but yeah. And then after that, I'll just go for the Q&A at the end. Yeah, it's a tricky thing. I try to just sort of remove myself and trust that you're in good hands. The work's done. There's nothing else you can do.
What about you, Kevin? Because playing these kinds of characters, these criminals, for want of a better word, is that's always a challenge. And sometimes you can get people who fail to make the disconnect between you, the character you've played on the screen, and you, the actor, Kevin D. How have the screenings been for you?
Yeah, look, I don't know that you ever get used to watching yourself, especially if you are playing different roles each time. You're always keen to see how it all comes together. And so I remember the cast and crew screening for this one, as Jordan said, I was quite anxious to see how it all came together, but it was blown away with, Matt's vision came to life, especially once you see the final edit with the score and everything. It was absolutely brilliant. And I think the first couple of times I watched it, I was very much focused on, I remember this, when we shot this, you're sort of still seeing how it all came together. But when I watched the recent screening last week, the first Q&A we had, it had been a good year since I'd seen the film. And I was very surprised how it really affected me. I was very upset. Took me a while to really to get over it at the end. I guess I just was sitting more in it, just watching it as a film, and it was very, very upsetting. And so I kind of had said to Matt, "Yeah, I'll go to all these Q&A. I'll sit through the screening and the Q&A, and now I'm not sure if I will watch the film or just turn up for the Q&A."
Yeah, no, that's understandable. I mean, I think one of the film's strengths is it asks some very difficult moral questions and puts you, the audience, in the shoes of Damon and Jordan's characters, really. And would this be as easy as you think? And what the film presents us is probably not. And it is a very, very interesting dichotomy, the whole thing. So Matt, where can people see it? When's it coming out more globally? Just give us the rundown on that.
Sure. Well, look, from last I heard, it comes out December 8th in the UK, and it should come out the same day in the US. So hopefully people can see it just before Christmas, across pretty much across the world. I don't know about any other European countries yet at this stage, but hopefully in the next couple of months we might get a few more nibbles. So but yeah, that's certainly the UK and US dates, and in Australia it comes out on digital, Blu-ray, DVD next week. So yeah, in a week's time you'll be able to own it and share it, and download it and watch it there in your home, and in Australia at least anyway.
Fantastic. I just want to come to each of the cast before Jordan tries to cut Damon off the stream again. Damon, what have you got coming up next? What else can we see you in?
I'm waiting to see how this goes. At the moment, this is absolutely where my focus is, and I'm putting all of my energy into this, and we'll wait and see. Hopefully this film gets the attention I think it deserves, because everyone involved in this film, and I do mean everyone, has put their heart and soul into it. So I'd really like to see this film make an impact and make a big dent on the cinematographic map, so to speak, both in Australia and outside of Australia. And we'll see what opportunities that ultimately brings for, again, everyone who was involved in it.
What's the reaction been like from your colleagues at work? Have any of them come down to the screenings?
Only a couple, and they've absolutely loved it. Just really, to use the word enjoy is not perhaps the most appropriate term for this film, but they have walked away saying that is an absolutely brilliant film, and very much what other reviewers have said. They've commented on all aspects of it, from performances. And thank you for your comments earlier on with regard to our performances, much appreciated. But they've all, thank you. But they've all commented on performance. So they've commented on music. They've commented on the Australian landscape. Now, what they don't realise is they're actually commenting on the cinematography as much as anything else. That's what they don't see. But their comments were all in line with other audience members, along with the fact that it is a really hard-hitting film and it raises some really tough questions.
Yeah, there's some cinematography in the movie is essentially almost a character unto itself, I would say. Jordan, what else can we see you coming up in? What you got coming out?
Yeah, I have. What have I got? I've got I've got a few projects that are all kind of quietly just sitting in the pipelines at the moment. I've had a couple of people reach out actually post this, which has been really exciting. So nothing that I can really talk about yet that's 100% locked in. But two pretty promising projects looking to shoot next year.
Ironically, you also played Ned Kelly, didn't you, in the Lawless Bushranger series, which is kind of ironic because Matt's been trying to make his own Ned Kelly film for quite a while.
Yeah. I hope he'll take it as a tester.
Actually, Damon showed up in that same series.
Yeah, I saw that. That's on Damon's IMDb. So, Kevin, which of the 5 serial killer roles that you've been offered are you going to take on?
Well, ironically, I actually played Ned Kelly for about 10 years as well as a day job. I am working on another serial killer role. I'm working on a horror at the moment. The same makeup artist from The Cost is working on it as well. And we were laughing the other day about how my goatee and my slick back hair kind of looks a bit like Troy in the flashback scene. So
it does a bit, yeah.
My dodgy murderer look. So that's my latest project, but it's
What's the name of that movie?
It's called The Killing Dark, but it's a lot more of traditional horror, and I'm sort of very much traditional villain in this one. The lines aren't as blurred in terms of who's good and who's bad kind of thing. I also did do a film earlier in the year with Jordan. We weren't on set at the same time, but we were involved in another feature. A few things in the pipeline as well.
I don't think I'd be doing my audience any favors if I didn't show them this awesome picture of you in a previous incarnation. And one of the things I've noticed about your pictures on IMDb is your incredible chameleon ability to look extremely different in every role. And this, I'm not sure which show this is. Firebird, is that right?
Yeah, that was a short film. It was set in the future, and I was part of a punk gang. Yeah,
quite keen to see that.
Why is it, Kevin? Like, I mean, honestly, you're one of the sort of most placid, nice, mild-mannered people that I've ever met. Yet, why does everyone keep coming to you with such dark roles? Like, what the hell's going on?
I think there's something about role. I have often gravitated to roles that are dealing with things like injustice and redemption as well, and things like that. So I guess I started taking on some of those roles, and now it's just sort of snowballed. People just see me as that character, I guess, now. I don't know.
I mean, I remember when I was looking at you, and I did see you do a role in which you were a prisoner or something, and it was quite affecting. And I remember thinking, oh, okay, this guy can go there. It's kind of weird. You see someone who's, I guess a lot of people might think you are like these characters, and then I've even had some people say to me, oh, what's that guy like in real life? Is he all right? And I'm like, seriously, he's really lovely. It's fine. Let's all pretend. So yeah. Anyway, it's just funny.
Quick question for everybody before we begin to wrap this up. Damon, what was the first film you can ever remember seeing on the big screen at the cinema?
Wow. I'm going to have to go with, even though I'm sure this wasn't the first film I saw on the big screen, but I'm going to have to go with Empire Strikes Back.
Oh, well, that would have been a good choice. Jordan, same question.
Yeah, The Little Mermaid. I was, I think, about 3 or 4, and my late granny took all the grandkids, and that was my first.
Mate, you think your answer's embarrassing? Mine was my gran took me to the re-release of Bambi, so that was my first one.
What do you mean embarrassing? I wasn't embarrassed. I'm proud of that.
Yeah, closely followed by Candle Shoe and then Star Wars. Kevin, what about for you?
I actually loved Bambi too. I used to have a little Bambi toy when I was a kid.
In the remake, they're not going to kill the mother, apparently.
Okay.
Spoiler.
No, that. I think the first film I saw in the cinema was actually an Australian film called Bushfire Moon.
Oh, wow. Yeah, I remember that one.
I grew up in a very isolated part of Victoria, and it was filmed near me. So I went on set one day. That was the first set I guess I was ever on. I was very, very young. And so we went and saw that in the cinema. And only a few years ago, I did an acting class with Dee Wallace, who was in the film. And I got to tell her that story.
She played the mother in E.T.
Yeah.
I think she's a very, very underrated actress.
Yeah, she's good.
Right.
Very good.
I'm amazed that she didn't get more like massive meaty roles after E.T.
Yeah,
She was so overlooked in that film. She
was really good.
Brilliant in Cujo and
she's great in The Frighteners as well.
Yeah, she's amazing.
That was shot in New Zealand.
Well, my first cinema experience kind of links into yours, Kev. Was E.T. It was the first film I ever saw.
There you go.
And I was freaking terrified. My grandma took me to that, and she had to take me out of the cinema 3 times. And then after the 3rd time, she went, "All right, I'm giving up. We're going home," because I was terrified of E.T. I thought he was the scariest thing I've ever seen.
Well, don't worry, Matt. You can watch it without any guns in it now.
That's right. But I've since watched it again. I really enjoy it. But I was terrified because I actually grew up a lot without a lot of TV. Our family didn't have a television when I grew up, and I didn't understand that what I was watching was fake. I thought what I was watching was something that had happened, and so therefore I couldn't disconnect the reality. And I know it left big scars on me, but I think those scars made me fascinated with cinema. So yeah.
Right, so I'm sending you an ET plushie for Christmas.
Yeah, and you're gonna hear the scream from around the world. Ah!
So Matt, what project have you got coming up next? Let me just change my hat. There we go.
I don't know. Well, it might be Blackjack. It really depends. But look, I've got a crime thriller that I'm trying to get funded at the moment, which is like a one location little crime thriller.
Yeah.
Impasse.
Yeah.
All set in a restaurant. So I'm hoping to get that off the ground in the next few months. We'll see what happens. In the meantime, my focus is just on getting the cost out there and getting these screenings going. And and I'm loving taking it to people and getting the reception and starting to hear what people are thinking of it and that's the most rewarding part. So. You have a couple of walkouts every now and again when you show it. Some people find what they're watching a bit too confronting, and you got to respect that. But it seems to be making a bit of a splash over here, which is nice. With critics and responses. So we hope it's got a bit more legs in it, the old cost, before we're finished with it.
I hope that the splash finally gives you the support from the Australian film and television establishment that has been so lacking in your career thus far, and that'd be nice. They'll finally give you the support that you need to get the projects that you want off the ground, because I would like to see those films being made. I just want to thank everybody for coming in. I know it was a bit of a mission to get all 4 of you together at the same time, and I really appreciate it. Just know going forwards, if you've ever got a film or TV show that you're in that you want to plug and come on and talk about, consider the Outcast Creative at your disposal, and you're welcome here anytime. Just briefly, I'm going to mention what we got coming up next. I'm doing a special retro review on the new Blu-ray release of Cutthroat Island, which Matthew Modine just liked on my Twitter literally about an hour ago.
I got a soft spot for that film.
I do too. I'm doing an in-depth review of The Long Shadow and the classic TV series Our Friends in the North, BBC drama. If you haven't seen it, guys, you should watch it. It's one of the best British television shows ever made, and it launched the careers of Daniel Craig, Christopher Eccleston, Mark Strong, and Gina McKee. And in fact, I have the DVD of it.
It's quite a lineup.
So do watch that if you've never seen it. It's 9 parts, and each part is like a feature film, and it covers a story from 40 years of the lives of 4 friends. Starts in the 60s, ends in the mid-90s. It's an amazing show. So I'm going to be doing a real in-depth review and discussion on that. And then I've got makeup artist and special effects artist Jeff Farley. He is the next industry interview, I think. Coming in on 17th of October. He did 2 seasons of Babylon 5. He did the original Babylon 5 pilot. He did Demolition Man. He worked for Empire Pictures for Charles Band. So he did Robojocks and Ghoulies and Arena and all those low-budget sci-fi movies that came straight out to your video store in the mid-80s to mid-90s. So he's going to be a fantastic guest. And I believe he's bringing on a couple of the puppets as well. So that's going to be very interesting. So thanks very much for people watching. Appreciate you tuning in. I know this is not my usual time, so the audience was smaller than I would have liked, but I know a lot of people are going to watch this on replay. Thanks for everybody for coming in and giving me your time. I really do appreciate it. And I wish you all the very best success with this movie. It deserves success, and do check it out when you can see it. And I'll be giving more information about that and putting it all down below so people can check that out. In the meantime, don't forget to tell the people that you care about that you love them, and I'll see you all again real soon.
Thanks for having us, Lance. Really appreciate it.